Snelheid. De jachtigheid van onze tijd. Een tijd waarin we oorlog voeren van achter een computerscherm. Een tijd waarin we razen en trekken, in vliegtuigen stappen, in auto's. Is daar ruimte voor wat rust? Dr. Mansukh Patel komt uit Bangor, dat is in Wales. En is al 21 jaar bezig met een boodschap uit te dragen van rust. Niet zomaar rust, maar rust in een traditie van wijsheid, in een yoga-traditie. Hij was in Nederland voor een Eurowalk. Want de laatste tijd maakt hij er niet de gewoonte van. Hij is bezig om via gezamenlijke wandelingen de mensen tot vrede te brengen. Dus was er in Rotterdam ook een Eurowalk waar 1000 mensen aan meededen. Lopen over de wereld in een rustig tempo. Welcome, Mansukh. I just explained that the speed of the world is one thing, but there is an antidote.
Right. One of the most important things to realize is that running around and being on the move all the time can be very catastrophic and can be hurtful to the human heart and to the relationship. So I always think it's so important to take time, to slow down and to really kind of breathe with the presence of life. To try and give yourself an opportunity to experience life in its fullness. And if you do that, you find that there is a way of becoming alive to the dreams that are inside you. And I always advise people to say, please take time to do what we call kind of Eurowalk every day. Take even 5 minutes at the beginning of the day or even 5 minutes at the end of the day and make an appointment with nature. Go out and walk. Go out and feel the earth beneath your feet. Go out and feel the sky above you. Go and feel the air that breezes through your hair. And try and appreciate your connection with nature, which always has this wonderful, harmonious and completely balanced rhythm. So try and feel that and experience that. Once you experience it, you find that you come back to who you are.
Is modern life with its 8 o'clock news and speed and traffic jams, is that unhealthy for the body and the mind?
I think we already know that, because you find that there are so many more people now suffering with heart problems, so many people suffering with stress, and people who have kind of conditions, illnesses that are manifesting more and more and more. So yes, I would say that it is important that we try and get out of the rush of life and try and get into a state of what I call the calmness, the peace and the tranquility of all that we are. It is essential. I think it's that you recognize that life is not just about rushing everywhere. It is not just about accomplishing things outside us, but it is actually about trying to recognize that the greatest treasures that a human being has are often found in the stillness of one's presence. And that's quite important.
Now you live in Bangor in Wales, where you have founded a thing called the Life Foundation, which does therapeutic work based on yoga, based on understanding of those rhythms. On the other hand, most people will read your books, listen to you, even join you in a walk, and then go back and sit on the computer, do email, and get into it. There is the practice and the theory. The theory is great, but how do we get to the practice of living quiet and in harmony with nature?
Right. I always advise people to, first of all, look at constant factors in their life which they can change. Like, for example, when you wake up in the morning, it's important to try and spend at least 5 or 10 minutes just doing some simple body movements. Because in our yoga tradition, we say that emotions are controlled by motions. So if you move your body in a particular way, then your emotions become much more corrected and harmonized. Then, having done some movement, the next thing that all human beings are attracted to is, what can I put inside my mouth? What can I eat? So if you monitor the kind of food that you eat as well, that determines the kind of temperament that you have. And of course, everybody's got to eat to live. Everyone does have food. And you eat about 150 times a month. So you can make that into a practice of eating the right food, eating with the right attitude, eating with the right kind of atmosphere. And if you do that as a practical thing, then you will find that the theory manifests itself into a practical reality. The other thing which yoga is incredibly well known for, and that's why I recommend it to people, is that one of the most greatest gifts that we have, which can make things incredibly practical for us, is the power of remembering that we are living because of the breath that we have. You don't have to carry a pocket of air with you every day and take it out of your pocket and put it in your nose. The air is incredibly free. It's natural, it's spontaneous. So what you do is you just become aware of the air that comes into your body and become aware of the air that comes out of your body. And we say that in a day we have 1,440 minutes. And out of that, even if you are aware of 100 minutes, then the other 1,340 minutes will take care of themselves.
I heard at some time said the length of your life, it depends on the number of breaths, your intakes and outtakes. So I thought for a while, well, I'm gonna be very slow, I live longer.
Sure.
Because it's true in a way, because I notice if you're agitated, you breathe fast. But do you think there's some truth to it?
Yes, of course there is, because
It's like a motor from a motor car that can do 100,000 miles and that's it?
well, there are two analogies that can be very useful here. One is that if you look into nature, you find that something like a little mouse that has a very high respiration rate has a very short lifespan. And something like an elephant that has a very slow rhythm of breathing is the longest living creature on earth, on land. So that's a good example. That nature tells us that if you breathe slowly and calmly, you will increase the lifespan, you will live longer, and also you will increase the quality of your life, because when you get angry, you breathe faster. And when you are happy and peaceful, you breathe slower. So if you want to be a calm person and live a very long, healthy, joyful life, then breathe slowly and breathe with awareness.
No, you can take it to extremes, and that's it's kind of funny. You're leaving for Birmingham now after a week in Holland, and this is an airport. Fast-paced life. Do you have, apart from breathing, do you think that we should change the rhythm of society in the sense that speed of cars, speed of traffic, we should do something about that?
I think not just for sake of life of a human being, for the sake of whole nature and environment, I think it is imperative and it's crucial that we do alter some of these factors that are creating great confusion. Like, for example, maybe we can reduce the speed at which cars are allowed to go on the motorways. I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. So there is a breathing space. And also to try and get people into a mode of thinking that just because you move fast doesn't necessarily mean you're achieving a lot. There is a psychology that needs to be understood by people, that you can achieve a tremendous amount by not traveling too much, by not traveling too fast. And I think it's just a wrong philosophy and a wrong psychology that's been ingrained in the human mind, that if you're running around everywhere, you think you are doing something. So yes, my suggestion is, both for the sake of environment, for the air that we breathe, for the oceans, for the trees, for the earth, for the sake of all of those, we need to certainly change, if it's possible, to change the rules at which we drive our cars, and also the way that we run about everywhere. I think that is crucial.
That is, you could say, less is more. Yeah. And these are Eastern tradition wisdoms. Now, yesterday you were in a church, or 2 days before, with, I think, 9 religions, from the Baha'i to the Buddhist to the Islam to Christianity. What is your tradition there?
Well, my tradition basically is that I am a Gandhian-based person. My parents were both trained by Mahatma Gandhi, a man who talked about the fact that life is sacred, that life is one, and that in reality humanity is one. That all religions actually come to a point of conclusion, come to a point of sacredness in that which we call the power of love, in that which we call the power to choose happiness and welfare and well-being for all living beings rather than just for ourselves. So that's kind of a Gandhian-based philosophy where Gandhiji used to say that there is enough in this world for everybody's need, not for enough for everybody's greed. That's quite important. And then when Gandhiji was asked the question like, what is your religion? Gandhiji said, watch the way I talk, the way I think, the way I listen, the way I do things, the way I get up, the way I dress. Look at the totality of everything that I am. And that is my religion, which basically means a human integrity. To believe in the power that you have as an individual to make a unique and a beautiful contribution to the human society. To be kind to people who are sitting next to you and to strangers that you meet on the road. To think about the suffering and the pains and the afflictions of people around the world, like in Kosovo at the moment, where thousands of refugees have been suffering, to know that you have the power to alleviate that suffering through humanitarian aid, collecting food, medicine, all those things goes up to make what I call the Gandhian religion. And to me, that is such an embracing thing. So for myself, although I come from India and Hinduism is the foundation of India as such, I believe that Gandhi has put Hinduism on the most practical and a universal sense possible. So that is my kind of what I call the human religion of love and a human religion of collective consciousness, which is essential.
That is wholeness, that is being one. When you hear in Holland we have many people come from different cultures, and they say about our leaders now, they speak with two tongues, or they have two hearts. You could say they have one technology heart, and maybe they also have a spiritual heart, but the two hearts don't match. The two tongues in our face, they're nice, but in the back they say no more refugees. This split in society, which is a split in ourselves. I agree, because I still want nice clothes and nice cars and stuff like that, and peace for the world. How can we bridge that?
Probably one of the most important catalysts would be to try and give people an opportunity to get back in touch with themselves. See, when a human being loses touch with his real wisdom, with his real knowledge, with his real truth, with his real love, then you lose touch with your ethics and your morality and things that are precious to you. You stop caring about people. In fact, you stop caring about yourself and even your family and children. So my suggestion to people to bring the unity into themselves is, first of all, to make an appointment with themselves every day. To ask yourself the fundamental question, and the question being, in this silent time, in this quiet moment, to ask yourself the question, to think about the fact that what I am about to do as a politician, or about to do as a decision maker in this country, the decision I'm about to make, does that decision make a difference to the thousands of poor, suffering men and women around the world, or even people in Netherlands? There are people who live in Amsterdam who have no homes. There are young people who are poor, young people who are turning towards drugs because they have no hope, no dream. Everything's been removed for them because we're living in a world that has been made so competitive, and it's based on the ethic of more and more and more, accumulate more, and trample over your colleagues and compete and put them to one side and try and become better regardless of how they feel. So these thousands of young people, thousands of people who don't have homes in Amsterdam and throughout Netherlands and other countries, if the decision you make doesn't help them, then it's a wrong decision. It's a completely wrong decision. So
apart from right decision, do we need like role models? You mentioned Gandhi.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was a role model for you and for many people in the West. If I look at our present, the cabinet members or whatever, there are very few role models. Even in school, what I hear from the teachers is that they are not even allowed to become a role model. If you're out of the ordinary, you pushed back. You walk against the wall. So, do we need role models, and how do we get role models? How do we encourage people to take that role of living an exemplary life?
Sure. Two things. One is that, first of all, take the responsibility of becoming a role model yourself. That's very crucial, because there is enough power in a human being. When you are moved by sentiments, when you're moved by something that is not right and harmonious in society, know that there is a hero, or in a women's case, there is a shiro, sitting inside you, and allow that, first of all, that powerful warrior, that powerful personality, that powerful leader to emerge. As it starts emerging, you will find yourself that there are enough people on this world, like Nelson Mandela is a wonderful example, who we are hoping to meet, because I'm on my way to South Africa very soon, and we are hoping to meet him in South Africa, and just to discuss the plight of young people in South Africa. So he's a good model, because he sat in a prison for over 25 years, and suddenly has come out of that prison solitude with a greater empowerment, with a greater strength. So we can use his teachings. So once you become empowered yourself, you will begin to find that there are many unseen heroes in Netherlands, I'm sure, who will also come out of the woodwork to meet you. And the fusion of different number of people, different individuals, all of them beginning to come out into their individuality and with their passion, begins to create what I call the unseen powerful hero, the unseen powerful individual. And I think it's a collective effort that's needed at the moment as well. And each person can take a certain amount of passionate responsibility and say, yes, I'm part of this world, and there are many problems in it, and I'm going to become not part of the problem anymore, I'm going to become part of the solution that is here. And I think catalyzing a change like that will alter the way you think and feel and the way you act in this world. So I invite people to take their life into their own hands and become a hero themselves.
That's good. Now another thing which I noticed at the church, with all these, they all have their own rituals, and you even said, take some 5 minutes in the morning. Now some North American Indian might do that and greet the sun, sure, or do this prayer or that prayer, but take a little ritual. Do rituals help us to obtain that state of quietness, that state of balance?
Yeah, I think it is my view and opinion, and it's based with experience of the fact that I was brought up in East Africa, like I said, with the Gandhian upbringing, but around me were the Maasai warriors. And when I was young, I saw these Maasai tribes, how they were ordaining people into what I call manhood. And we have lost
the rite of passage.
The rite of passage. And in our modern society, we have no way of giving people these initiations. And so rituals are important in acknowledging a particular state, so that a child or a human being is empowered to know that they have entered into another phase. So rituals involves a whole community coming together, meaning uncles and aunts and mothers and fathers and grandparents. They come together, and then they actually support this one individual and say that by this particular act and this particular ritual, we are saying that you are ready to take on your life. And it's a wonderful confidence. Rather than saying they're not good enough or they are not capable, it's wonderful to actually be given that permission from our elders to say, you have come to the place of your power. So, yes, I would invite people to say, try and engage in a ritual every day. It can be as simple as a ritual of going up to your children and saying, can you tell me what has been the most important thing to you today? That's a ritual. And the child will turn around and say, Dad, I think the most important thing is that when you came home today, you gave me a beautiful hug. And that can be the beautiful sentiment, but it's very powerful. Children sometimes say, can I have a ritual of the famous words, once upon a time? They love to hear a story. So the children might say, can you share a story with me, Mom? And the mother can just tuck in next to the child and tell him a beautiful story. That's a ritual. But that ritual of the last story at night will determine the changes that a child will experience throughout the night in the subconscious. And it creates a person. So when the child wakes up, they have been programmed to some degree in a moral, in an ethical, in a spiritual, in a land of wonder, a land of enchantment and excitement. For the 9, 10, 12 hours that they sleep, And when they wake up, the child will be full of excitement. So that ritual of sleeping next to your child and telling them an amazing story, which is what I do with my children, is a beautiful ritual. The ritual of eating together is so crucial. The reason families are now separating and fathers are fighting with sons and mothers are fighting with daughters and divorce are taking place is because they don't have time to eat together, which my mother used to say is an act of the most sacred prayer in a family. When a family stops eating together and without the television interfering, which I'm sorry to say, but I know this is the television program, but without any interference, a family can sit together and eat together and share about what has been the most important thing to them throughout the day, then that family will create unity, not just in themselves, but in the society they live in the community, in the nation, and in the country and the continent and the world that they live in.
So would you say rituals are necessary for structure? Structure are necessary to feel part of the fabric of what we are, or the whole. But why is it then that we are sometimes so afraid of someone else's rituals? Like in Holland we have many different religions and they want their own churches and their own rituals, and there's sometimes enormous opposition. We don't want another mosque here or there. Why do we do that?
I think one of the root feelings that people have is that when they don't understand something, they get afraid. So basically it is ignorance. So one of the key factors that my father and my mother taught me was that when you find face to face with the unknown, expose yourself to it, understand it, recognize the knowledge that is behind a particular act, recognize the reason that is behind a particular act. The moment you begin to understand it, your fear will disappear. Once fear disappears, you will find that your love, your respect, your reverence, your honor for different religions, different people will just grow. Instead of being afraid of different nations with which we create war with, and we create boundaries and fences, we actually begin to honor the diversity and say, isn't this a beautiful world with so many different people, with so many different understandings, because one worships the sun, one worships Christ, another one worships Krishna, another one worships Muhammad. Somebody worships the earth, and some people worship their children, and some people worship their wife, somebody worships their husband, and some people worship the act of being an environmentalist. It doesn't matter. So it is wonderful to recognize that this diversity, which is the richness of human culture, is not to be frightened of, but it's to be embraced, and it's meant to empower us.
It sounds good, but now there's a war going on.
Yeah, sure.
At the moment, and I think it's an unjust war. Well, it's not whether it's just or unjust, but it's just a stupid war. And doing this genocide in 20 years, because we're taking away the roads and the schools and the hospitals and the bridges, we condemn these people to 20 years of poverty. So I think I'm against this war. But in doing so, I feel that I can have respect for those people who push the buttons or say, go to war, the politicians who make the decision. How do I overcome this with respect? Instead of going out on the street and shouting, stop this and stop this, how do I respectfully tell them, try to convince them that this should stop?
Okay. My father once told us a little example of a school where all these children were fighting with each other, and the teacher couldn't control them. So he went up to the blackboard and drew a little line on the blackboard, and he said to the children, he said, could you go and make that line shorter, please? So one of the children got up and started rubbing it with a duster, and the teacher said, no, I want you to make the line shorter without touching it. Nobody could do it. How do you make the line shorter without touching it? And then the teacher realized there was tremendous silence and respect and reverence. So he says, do you want me to show you how? And all the students said yes. So he went up to the blackboard and drew another bigger line on top of that smaller line. You know, to make that line shorter, you don't have to attack that line. You just enlarge yourself. So my first advice and just a source of nourishment for people who are
trying to make a change, and I'm one of them. I just love it. I love the challenge that I am against certain kind of opposition, an incredible opposition. But in that opposition, I know that all I have to do is keep enlarging my power, my love, my ability to work with people, and just keep expanding. Because love, courage, forgiveness, these are powerful tools that are made up of infinite source. Whereas everything that is based on denigration, hatred, greed, lust are very small. They die eventually. They cannot survive. They perish. So you keep making your line longer, and if you want to make that line longer quicker, then don't condemn your tormentors. Actually, your thought is so powerful because we exist by the power of what we think and feel. Feeling and thought are intertwined. Thought is a powerful energy, as Einstein said it. That thought is so powerful that if you start hating the people who are destroying this world and creating wars, they will only continue to destroy it more. So I was trained in this Gandhian tradition to say, love the tormentors, so that so much, that's what Gandhi did. He loved the oppressors so much that he managed to move the greatest empire, the British Empire, on earth, and move them out from war into a complete state of peace without firing a single bullet. That is his power.
That is power. Thank you, Mansukh.
You're welcome.